We know that we will use AI more in the future.
I actually think ChatGPT is great. I love it, but I think there should be a rule we shouldn't be allowed to copy and paste out of it.
We're totally on board for any of the developments that VR is going to throw our way, and excited about it as well, I think.
You always have to draw back on the human experience.
Like, I don't think we would ever use AI to write scripts because AI doesn't have a soul.
Absolutely. It might one day. Welcome to the Video Marketing Podcast from us here at Arc Media Group, experts in all things video, marketing and social media. We're committed to helping brands unleash creativity and amplify their impact. This podcast isn't just about trends, it's about actionable insights to help marketing leaders stay ahead in an ever-evolving landscape. You join me, Phil Arkinstall, the Chief Exec of Arc Media Group, and our Head of Sales and Marketing, Scott Billing, for this episode on emerging technology in the video marketing industry. We're diving into the cutting-edge innovations shaping video marketing today, from AI-driven content creation to immersive VR experiences. We're also lucky enough to be joined today by Claire and Sammy from Virtual Decisions, a groundbreaking organisation that uses VR experiences to educate audiences, allowing them to control real-life scenarios and navigate the consequences in a safe simulation. Welcome both.
Hello.
So first of all, can you tell us a little bit about what Virtual Decisions is and what you do?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Claire. I'm the CEO of Virtual Decisions.
I'm Sammy, I'm the Head of Development.
And what Virtual Decisions does is we create real-world, narrative-driven VR experiences that change minds and save lives in a kind of nutshell. And what that means is that we are commissioned by organisations that need to make a difference, that need to engage with people on a different level, that's traditional kind of ways of working aren't doing it anymore, and they need something else. They need something new and something innovative and something really exciting and really engaging. So they might come to us with a problem. For example, we were commissioned by West Midlands Police and the Home Office to make a VR experience to look at the reasons why young people pick up and carry a knife and the consequences of that. So then we go into our process of creating this real world. So we use real people in real locations. We then go into the process of understanding what the audience need to get from that, like what message are we trying to send, what do they need to learn from it? And then we do the whole process in-house. So we research, we design the characters, we write the scripts, we film it, we edit it, we put it into a VR experience, and then Sammy designs all of the kind of extended learning that goes around it. So while VR is a brilliant kind of hook to get people engaged, particularly young people, the really important work comes after the VR experience. And because our background is in script writing for the film and television industry, so we really understand how to engage with an audience and how to write good dialogue, which I think is really, and we've all seen those awful training videos where you just want to curl up because the acting is terrible, the dialogue's appalling, and it just doesn't make any impact at all. So that's not what our experiences do, because we're really kind of, we're really good at writing dialogue that sounds authentic. We also work with a lot of people with lived experience in whatever issue we're dealing with. So we spoke to lots of young people that had been involved in the criminal justice system around the reasons why they would carry a knife. So it's all heavily researched, lots of work with lived experience. And then that's put into the VR program, which is what makes it really engaging and what makes it really, really authentic and really accessible, and which is why it works.
And I think the real special thing about Virtual Decisions as well is in the title, the decisions that you have to make. So every young person, every participant that takes part in Virtual Decisions cannot be passive. They have to be active in their journey. So they have to make decisions as they go through the film, with each decision having a different outcome. So everybody in the room, once they take the headsets off, they'll all talk about what I chose to do and how that impacted me and how did that differ from what my friend chose. So it really sparks that really interesting and meaningful discussion between young people.
Yeah.
So how did the VR come into it? When was the sort of introduction of that, and how does that help with the whole process?
Okay, so it was 2018 when we pivoted into using VR. We had for many, many years done lots of creative work, but in person. So we'd go and we'd do lots of theatre. Lots
Have
of.
you ever seen theatre in education? Did you ever have this at your
Did
school?
you have it at
Yeah,
school?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Was
we
it
get
good?
an acting troupe come
Yeah.
usually you get an acting troupe that comes into the school. They'll do a performance, and then for the whole of the year group, and it'll be issue based, and then young people can comment and try and change the action to make a better outcome. So that's what we did for years. That's the bread and butter of
For
what
years.
we did.
We also did lots of like proper community theatre, like working with really unusual community groups. I hate saying the word hard to reach, but community groups that don't engage a lot of the time, and we would use like creative methods to like work with them around different things. And then in 2018, I went to see a piece of theatre and education that the company were doing, and we always try to use, young actors, but because they're working, they're still kind of 21, 22. And they were brilliant, and we made our performances really, really engaging.
And our scripts were great as well. They were
Used loads of humour to like really engage like the young people. But I went to this one performance. I think it was around prevention, wasn't it? Radicalisation and prevention. And there was a physical disconnect between what was going on the stage and the audience, of which there was like 350 year nines or whatever. So there was that physical like separation between them. But also kind of like TikTok was massive. Everyone was making their own content. Young people were really savvy and really smart at creating stuff.
And also, I think the novelty has worn off a little bit with theatre and education. I remember when I was at school, a theatre group would come in and I'd be so excited because I'd get out of maths for an hour. And I think of all my years doing theatre and education, I've always seen that kids being excited. And that started to fade a little bit because they're not seeing anything new. We've seen this before. We had an acting troupe last year. Like nothing was new for them, and we had big conversations about that, didn't we? How can we make what we do even better, even more engaging, even more appropriate to the modern audience?
That was the key word. It was about the engagement of it, because really every one of those kids in that audience could have disengaged if they wanted to, because there was nothing actively like keeping them engaged. And so we had a big talk, and we were like, how can we use all of our skills, the script writing, the performance, the storytelling,
our experience with young people,
how can we do all of that but put it into something that is truly engaging? And that's when we hit on using VR, and that was in 2018. And we then got funding from Innovate UK to make our first VR experience, which we did in 2019. And it was we'd never done it before. I'd worked in film, so I know how to direct and I know how to my way around a camera, but we'd never used VR. So the kind of whole process of understanding what that means from a creative point of view, and like how you need to make things different, and the kind of performances from the actors, and all of that was like a whole massive learning experience.
Well, because the camera is a person. If you imagine as the viewer, the camera is a person. So that's not something we do on an usual film set. You have to include the camera in the action. All the actors have to be very aware of their interaction with the camera. All the crew have to be very aware as well. You all have to stay in one tiny little bit so the camera doesn't see you. It's 360 or 180. So that goes into it as well.
And so it was really important that we got it right. So it took a long time, a lot of research, a lot of kind of playing around with stuff. We got our cast, we shot it, and then we developed it and put it into the VR experience. By the time we'd done that, we were late 2019, and we just started to show it to some really important people in the police that were really, really interested and really engaged with it. They kind of instantly commissioned us to go and work in various different kind of hotspots around Birmingham where crime was at a really high level.
And this is when we were seeing the delivery happen with young people as well, and how much of an impact that was instantly having.
Yeah.
That from our experience of working with 300 kids at a time, suddenly went down to 10 at a time, all wearing headsets. When the headsets come off, they're all instantly talking about how they recognise this in their own lives and in their own lives outside of school or in school, and we had so many disclosures from young people saying things like, oh, this happened to me the other day, or somebody's given me money to run a job for them, or somebody's given me a knife to put under my bed. And we were just blown away by these instant disclosures that we couldn't walk away from it in good faith, really, could we?
No.
We had to do something with it, and that's why we started partnering with the police and youth offending services.
So all of that kind of like first sort of piloting experience happened at the sort of the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, and then we're not going to talk about what happened after that. But safe to say, it was a really difficult time because we just
take a bit of a step back.
we just got this new product and we couldn't really take it out anymore. We certainly couldn't put headsets on people. But what we did was a lot of networking and conversations and telling people about what we were doing and research and all of that. And that was it then. From we were then commissioned by the police and the Home Office to make our second film, which we did in 2021. And then from then, really, it's just kind of skyrocketed, really, and we now have 6 films.
Yeah, we went from making 2 films in 3 or 4 years to an extra 4 films in 1 year. So yeah, snowballed massively.
So as time's passed, so you've got your first one off the ground in 2019. COVID's obviously caused the big black hole, and then you've got this momentum. Has the VR technology been changing in that time? Because I think, like with my consumer hat on, I bought one of the Facebook ones. What were they called? The Meta ones, Meta Quest. And you play about with it for about a week, and then it sits on the shelf for about 3 years afterwards. So obviously the purpose you've got and the drive that creates engages with the young people on the day. But do you think that VR in its form that it is now is going to evolve? Is that a journey that you'll evolve with it to see what VR looks like next, if that makes sense?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, purely in the kind of the way that the headsets are at the moment. So we started out using Oculus, which were kind of like really sort of quite basic. They were still really good. And then we moved on to Meta. We've got a good partnership with Meta. So Meta Device donate to us. So we use Meta Quest headsets, and that's what we license out to all of our customers as well. We're now on the 3 S's that we use, but they're always going to evolve and they're always going to change. Sam and I were at South by Southwest week before last, and we saw an experience on an Apple Vision. Oh my God, it was incredible. I'd never tried one before. They're way out of, like, we can't use them in our business model because they're just too expensive.
So what is it? Tell us a bit more about that.
So the quality was just, I've never seen a VR film. It was real world. It was shot by this brilliant director from New York who had just shot a really simple film about a young girl who lives in very rural Vietnam, and she moves to a city.
Called Currents.
And they were,
It's
really good. And they just use it to show the difference in her landscapes and going from like really rural to a really busy city. But it was just beautiful, wasn't it?
The quality was unreal. Like, it really felt like they were there next to you. You could see the detail in her skin and her hair.
So is that to do with 8K or 16K resolution?
Yeah, it's
that sort
definitely
of stuff?
to do with that. They also shot it on a really good camera.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And so we immediately both came out of the headsets and went, what did you shoot that on? Tell us where you bought it from, because we need to go and buy one immediately.
Yeah.
But it's so that bit of the technology, like the kind of the way that the quality will evolve will definitely be something that we look at. But also it's what other things that they can do. We're looking at doing some kind of voice activating VR experiences so that the user in the headset can answer the characters, and then some magic AI fairies will then figure out which clip to show next that relates to what the answer from the person has been. So that's all about using so voice to text recognition and the text and all of that. So I think there'll be huge developments. Also, learning through VR is so much more impactful. The knowledge retention when you're learning through VR is huge compared to if you're on a PowerPoint or if you've got a worksheet. It's just massive, especially for young people and young people who are neurodiverse as well. It just makes such a huge difference. I think knowledge retention rate is about 75% in VR.
Wow.
So the young people that are going through our experiences, they watch The way we set it up as well is all about character interaction, and you understand and you know who these characters are. So a young person can do the VR experience and weeks later still be talking about what happened to Reese in that film, and because it becomes real. They become real people, and you remember, and you
talk
feel
about
it,
them as if they're real people,
and
don't
you
they?
you feel the kind of the emotions that are going on within the VR experience, and because you felt it, you remember it. It's like,
Which is a big part of building young people's empathy
Yeah.
and perspective taking, because they feel it, they believe it.
So yeah, we're totally on board for any of the developments that VR is going to throw our way, and excited about it as well, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting what you were saying about the retention, isn't it? That's obviously a big part of our business as well, in terms of delivering messages to people in a way that they're going to connect with it emotionally. So it's very similar.
So with what you do, are you finding that there's a growth market of other companies coming into it, or from the States, or are you very much on the cutting edge?
No one's doing it the way that we're doing it,
Right.
I think. There are other VR experiences out there that are dealing with issues similar to ours, but no one's doing it the way that we do it. Our kind of uniqueness comes in the fact that we have, I've got years of script writing, screenwriting experience under my belt, so that's something that you can't replicate. And like I say, it makes such a difference in the dialogue and the characters and all of that. And then our our decisions and our questions that we pose to the headset wearer, we do a lot of kind of work with academics from the University of Birmingham as well to make sure that all we're asking is all backed up by science. So we're not just randomly throwing out points and questions for them to answer and like it doesn't matter. It really does matter. It's all embedded in neuroscience of decision making and things like that. So that also adds a big part to what we're doing. And also, we're trauma informed organisation, so we understand that for us, it's about making that behaviour change for people before whatever they're going through becomes something that they can't get out of again or can't live with, and just to help and improve people's lives in a really positive way.
And helping young people understand that what they're going through, we can relate to them, whether it's us that's delivering it or whether it's their youth worker or whoever's delivering it for them. It just bridges that gap in conversation, and that's kind of where the trauma informed comes from as well. That young people feel safe, they feel supported, they can talk about these issues like knife crime, child criminal exploitation without feeling judged. It's a really safe space for them to do that.
Yeah.
So AI is obviously causing massive shockwaves throughout so many industries at the moment. How's that affecting what you guys are doing in the VR world?
So yeah, I think everyone everywhere in some way is using AI, whether it's just like ChatGPT to do something or whether people are, creating whole AI programs to, do some really complex stuff. We know that we will use AI more in the future, I think, particularly to kind of advance the user experience of our headsets to make them more complicated and more interesting and more diverse, I think. But it's kind of hard to know what that's going to look like until it happens for us. I think AI can be incredible, but I think it's really important to make sure that when you're using AI that you're controlling it and it's not dictating to you what you need to do.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
It does. Nothing what we've found in the sort of video marketing world is that you always have to draw back on the human experience, and like we've got many years of experience in video production, and there's a lot of bits of software that are coming out now that you can in theory tell it what you want it to make, but I still think that the human touch is massively important. The certain things it will work for, but it's on a sort of quite low level at the moment. That's not to say it won't level up higher and higher and higher, and there are some examples of AI that I've seen recently where the quality is actually quite impressive, but the human touch, which I think is what you're saying about script writing in particular, I think you still need that to convey messages to people.
I think it's so important.
100% agree.
Yeah.
100% agree. Like, I don't think we would ever use AI to write one
No.
of our scripts, because AI doesn't have a soul.
No, absolutely. It might one day. But I think where it is useful is that tool. So I remember back years ago, like if you'd got a piece of music that was integrated with someone's voice, that was it. You couldn't edit the two apart again. They were linked together permanently. Now you can tell it to remove the music track, so you've got your audio back. And there's quite a well-known phrase, which usually you put the swear word in, but you put it in and you get out the other end. And I think the reality now is, we've been given sound files by people that are really bad. The quality is unusable, but AI now as a tool can extrapolate the bits that are the good bits and make something that's actually average or acceptable. And we've had a few clients whereby they might have shot something themselves, and that's usually the problem is either the lighting or the sound if someone self-shoots. So to actually try and fix the sound is something that is a bit more achievable than it used to be.
And that's really useful.
Yeah.
That's really useful. Where I have a really big kind of issue with AI, I think, is when it replaces a human that should be able to do things. I went to Web Summit in Lisbon last year, and I was walking around the expo, and this guy stopped me and he said, "Oh, come and have a look at my AI thing." And everything was AI in Web Summit, everything, and I was like, "Okay, fine." And he took me through this thing, and it was all about onboarding into a company. It wasn't anything that I could have used really, but he was saying, and the brilliant thing about it is that we don't need to use real people anymore, because we can just tell AI to, everything, all of the HR rules. It can ask her any question, and this AI woman will just tell you everything. And I went, but her eyes are like, there's nothing
There's no
there.
soul.
There's no
Yeah.
connection. There's no, and also you're taking a job away from an actor, and they really need work. They really need it.
Yeah,
So for
definitely.
me, I think it's something that we're really passionate about. Whenever we film our experiences, anyway, we use really raw actors. We don't really go to agents and things like that. We're from everyone's talking about adolescence, right? The young man that's in that. So that's always how we've cast our films. We go to like grassroots casting and find the people that we think are
Go
brilliant.
to schools and
Yeah,
find
yeah,
the
yeah,
kids.
absolutely.
And you can't use AI to replace that.
No.
Not at all.
No, absolutely.
It should just be a tool, shouldn't it? I mean, I think the whole, and I actually think ChatGPT is great, and I love it. But I think I think there should be a rule we shouldn't be allowed to copy and paste out of it. Because I think it's a really good conversation starter. I think it's really good. Some people look at a blank page in terms of ideas and they really struggle with that. And I think whenever I've used it, what ChatGPT actually does, it gives you an idea and you go, oh, not that, but this.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
it's something to bounce off, especially if you're sat there, on your own or whatever. So I think it's really good. But from our point of view, seeing people write their social media captions with it and seeing people create copy with it, and you're just like, oh, because you can tell from a mile.
Oh my
Yes,
God,
you
you
can.
really can. You really can. You really can. Sam and I, when we were in South by, we saw a presentation by a company that have essentially are using AI to create scripts. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, straight away we were
like,
we
red
started
flag to
the
a bull.
presentation thinking,
What?
Go on then.
And he showed us what he'd done. And so there's a saying in the film and television division, I don't know whether it's something that you guys use in your world as well, but if you write something, people will say it's very page one. Do you know what that means? Like it's your first idea, like you haven't really thought very much about it, and you've written this idea down, and you go, yeah, it works, but it's very page one. Let's throw some rocks at it and make it more interesting. So the story that this AI script machine had churned out was exactly that. It was very page one, and it was very pedestrian, and it was really like middle of the road, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then he started talking about how they're using it to create content for a channel in New York where the demographic of the people that watch it are mainly Hispanic, and it's got a huge audience. but people aren't making enough content for that demographic. So he was like, we're using our AI thing to make loads and loads of content for this channel, and he showed us a bit of this program, and it was an animation, and dear me, it was dreadful. It was like the dialogue was like, "Hey, other kids, why don't we go down to the park and see what's going on?" It was like that, and we were just like going,
Cringing, absolute cringing.
and
in
also,
our chairs.
why does that audience deserve anything less than? It just made me really.
Yeah, they're just
cross.
filling a gap, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're not caring what's going in
No,
it.
not at all. And then he said, and this only took us 3, and I seriously thought he was going to say minutes, days, and we were like,
3 days to create
Would have
that.
been better off doing it from scratch for
Yeah,
real in 3 days.
yeah, 100%.
So what's been you talked a little bit about it earlier, but what's been the impact of using the screens versus the theatre? Like what's the success stories of that?
Lots of success stories.
Yeah, lots and lots of success. I think apart from just huge engagement levels, like everyone wants to have a go. Everyone.
Because just jumping on that point straight away, you get young people that don't want to be at school, don't want to be in an assembly, don't want to be talked at. And then they walk into a room and they see a VR headset and straight away they go, "What's that?" And you say, "Oh, we're doing VR today. Do you want to have a go?" "Yeah, okay." So straight away you've got buy-in.
Yeah.
So even before they know what the program is, even before they know what the film's about, you've got them hooked already because it's a VR headset. So that's massively changed things for us, hasn't it?
Huge.
Is that to do with the fact that I know that you can get them, but they're still quite expensive, right? So they're not a medium that people like have at home and are familiar with. So it's like you've got that sort of straight away the novelty factor of that.
Yeah, there's the novelty factor. There's definitely a lot of young people that have headsets, and you'll always have in every class you'll always have 1 or 2 saying, "I've got one of these at home." But even those young people that probably are on their headsets every day, it's almost like they're showing everybody, look what
Right,
I've
of
got,
course.
and I have this at home, but now we're all going to do it together. So they get excited because you're sharing that technology with everybody.
But our experiences are used a lot with young people who are very vulnerable and are from really high rates of deprivation. Lots of probation services use our experiences with young people that are involved in criminality. And a lot of the time, one of the biggest impacts about using technology is that it makes the relationship between the professional and the young person, it puts it in a really positive place. If you're a probation worker and you're going to go and see a young man, 13, 14, and you walk in with another worksheet or another questionnaire, they're out. They are questioned out about talking about what they've done and how they're feeling, because that's all people out there, their parents or their carers, their teachers, their probation workers, their social workers. They just don't want to do it anymore. And so loads of organisations that use our experience will say it's one of the biggest things that impacts their working day is that they know when they're going to go and see that young person that can be quite difficult and can be quite negative, they're going in with a VR headset, they know they're going to have a much more positive reaction and a much more positive session, and in essence get that young person the help and the support they need earlier and quicker. And
that young person's not going to sit there going, "Oh, I don't want to do that." They all want to have a go. And then because the film that they're watching is so relatable, and it's their own personal journey, so we always say there's no judgment. You can choose whatever you want to choose within your film. We're just going to have a little chat about it afterwards. As soon as that experience finishes for them, you can't stop them talking. They want to talk to you about it. They want to tell you who they've met and who's annoyed them, who they've seen, what decisions they've made, what questions they've answered, and they're really really keen to tell you all about it, aren't they?
Yeah. So I would say there's 2 things about the tech. Not only is it the kind of like the knowledge retention and all of what that does, and the active decision making process that really helps them think more positively and safely for themselves. It's also literally the fact that it makes their relationships with their professionals more positive, and that helps hugely.
That's great. So, I mean, obviously you're applying this tech to quite a specific part of the market. Do you see VR sort of stepping up and becoming mass? Because I know there's obviously a lot out, there's a lot of money behind it with Meta and stuff like that. But do you think in a few years' time everyone will be sat with their headsets on, or will it evolve, or how do you see it going?
I think a mixture. I think more people will have them. I think more people will embrace it as a way of learning in the corporate world as well as the public sector, just because it is so impactful, because it really does work. But I think there'll also be changes. I think we're looking at ways of how to roll out our experiences on a much bigger scale. Because at the moment we've got hundreds of VR headsets that are licensed all around the country, but essentially people take like 40 from us because that's what you can kind of cope with. If we want to, we're just in development with an organisation who want to roll a programme out across the whole of the Midlands and Wales, and we're like, well, how do we make that happen? So we're looking at different ways to be able to still have a really good VR experience that is decision making and narrative driven, but that you can do on a phone in a different sort of headset, which is much cheaper.
Is that where you like put it into the cardboard cutout sort of thing?
Yeah. There's some really good ones now. There's some kind of like sort of plastic formed ones.
They look like VR headsets.
They look like VR headsets. But there's challenges when it comes to that, but that's something that we're embracing as well, because we want to be able to, because it works, because it makes such a difference. Just being able to do it on a much bigger scale is something that we're looking at now.
And then is there other technologies that can tie in, so like augmented reality or anything else in that sort of space?
Well, I know that our colleague was talking about augmented reality the other day, because we're potentially looking at going into the American market as well. And we're then facing challenges. How do we, if we have customers in the US and we're a small team, how are we going to train people in the US? So then we were talking, could we have augmented reality training videos that are in VR headsets where you're sat in your room, but our trainer is right there in front of you. So those are conversations we're having as well.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah, really cutting edge, really. I mean, it's really exciting that you're doing this from the backgrounds you've come from as well, to adopt that technology on top of and make it work as a business. I think it's fantastic.
So, are there any things that you've seen that could be the next sort of level for your industry in terms of technology?
There are examples of technologies that we've seen that we think that would be brilliant if we could bring that into virtual decisions. I have to say that me and Claire are not the technical people at virtual decisions. We are the creatives, we are the script writers. So our techie people are not here today. So you'll have to excuse how I phrase all of this. But things like when we were in South by Southwest a couple of weeks ago in Texas, I was talking to somebody about how AI could be used to use on our characters. So let's imagine on set, when we film our films at the moment, we'll have our VR set, but then we'll have a second unit set. And those second unit sets, we interview all of our characters, and that forms a lot of our additional content. Now, if we could use some of that content so that the characters can talk back to the young people that are taking part in the workshop, so they can ask them questions about how they're feeling, why did they make that decision, what's going on in your home life or whatever, that would be really, really valuable to our extended learning packages of work. So that's one example of something we definitely want to look into. I know that some of our team as well have played with the idea of having kind of I want to say, it's not players, but two-player VR experience where, let's say me and Claire have both got headsets on, we're both watching the same VR experience, but I'm seeing it from my point of view, Claire's seeing it from her point of view, and my decisions might impact Claire and vice versa. I don't know how that would work. And with me and Claire writing the scripts, I'll have no idea what the decision tree looks like on that. But those are things that really excite us, and knowing that those things are possible is really exciting to explore one day. Yeah.
Thanks for that, both. It was really interesting. Really interesting to hear how you're using technology and how it's impacting your industry over the years. And we hope to hear more from you soon.
Thank you very much. It's been really fun.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And join us for the next episode where we'll be talking about social media and how you can use that to transform your brand online.